We are back live here on the beat, 7:35, and it is cold out there across southeastern North Carolina. But on a positive note, I am sure it's not as cold as where our next guest is. He joins us every Friday, and we thank him for being with us and taking the time and sharing with us on what he is, where he is on his mission to convince our elected officials in Congress and other organizations who support changing our system of accounting of the financial operations of the government to an accrual system and many other things. The author of Unaccountable Congress, CPA, and former Congressman Joe DioGuardi from New York. Joe?
Good morning, good morning. It is cold, and I'm right here on the Hudson River, so it gets magnified. That wind comes right down from Albany and comes over here and increases that wind chill.
In your discussions here, and we have something, we have a lot more in more recent time, I'm talking about in the last several months, something that else has come up. We have, as you say, massive increases in debt, massive increases in deficit spending, all these different lending facilities and the impacts of them of the Fed. We have all the bailouts and other things which are added liabilities of the bailouts and the Fannie Mae's and the Freddies. We have all now and it's growing, maybe even exploding increase in government subsidies and payouts to people because of the economic conditions. Doesn't that all? My question is.
Guarantee.
Well, my question is. And you're right, guarantees. And the increase in obligations to government workers and government operations, doesn't that, stop. Is that being discussed between you all? That to me would be the most reason to support this move.
Yes, absolutely. Just take one thing. We get back to what you talk about Obamacare all the time. Why is it that we didn't see a debate on what the future cost of Obamacare was? Not just within 10 years when they're front-loading all kinds of fees and tax increases that you need a CPA to figure out because they're all in this huge bill. But when you look at this bill, it's basically a massive increase of Medicaid. Now, we know that Medicaid is not funded like Social Security and Medicare. And by the way, even though you might say this is discretionary, it's not. They consider it mandatory because it's always paid. The cost of Obamacare, if you measured it the same way as Social Security, like the actuaries have to put something on the books if you have the right accounting system, and they did this in the Senate, is $17 trillion. Yeah, over that period of time. This is something that would have to be recorded as a liability. It's an unfunded liability that's expected to be paid, even though there's not an earmarked tax for it, and even though there's not a contract. That's the way accounting works. So when someone tells you, what the law says that if we run out of money, we don't have to pay it. Come on. Everybody's running around talking about the fact that you got this for life. It's a lockbox. It's a trust fund. And at the state level, this is what they need, because 60% of this money for Medicaid comes out of the federal government. We need a better accounting system.
There's something I want to talk to you about now that leads into what's in the news, what has been in the news previously, and it's diabolical. Look, we've talked about it. Let's be honest about this. This has been a clear policy. It's clear it's the policy of the United States government on both sides of the aisle to not fully disclose to the American people the true financial situation in the United States. That is a fact. I don't believe that's opinion. And I believe what you want to do is say to properly manage this country and serve the people, serve the people, we need to know exactly where we stand every day, every month, every year. Now, and where we're going, so we can make the right decisions. That's just common sense. But there's something more diabolical. About a couple of years ago, as they should do, and as they have always done, S&P came out and looked at the United States government and where it was going and downgraded the United States government to AA+. What we saw in the aftermath of that was a federal government, no different than any dictatorship or a fascist government, with such aggressive actions, go after and punish S&P. and a threat to Moody's. Now, there were a lot of people that said, you talk show host and you people bringing this out, you don't know what you're talking about. Headlines, Joe, headlines. Yep. Now from court documents, finding out that, in fact, it was Mr. Geithner that threatened and was involved in the punishment of S&P. And, in fact, made phone calls threatening the other agencies because this administration did not want the American people to know exactly where we were financially and where we were headed. Now, if you and I did that, any of us did this, any business owner, any executive, any corporate board, anybody tried to threaten or intimidate these independent reporting agencies, they would be in federal prison, would they not?
Right.
Now,
it would be obstruction of justice. Basically, this has got to be now put in the Supreme Court of the United States of America because everybody is kicking this can around for 50 years, as I've said in my congressional resolution. It's time to resolve it, and it's got to be done.
But it's, but this level of hiding it is diabolical. Not only the misleading and it is flat out lies of the administration of where we are and where we're going and the financial impacts. Now you saw yesterday that Moody's has come out, and by the way, they laid a lot of financial legal groundwork so they could protect themselves, has downgraded the healthcare industry, and rightfully so. And in fact, we all know that there's a word on the word out there by independent evaluators is if you don't straighten out this mess of Obamacare by the end of March, the damn system will collapse.
Well, listen, they took it on the chin with the toxic mortgages. They're still getting sued right now, and rightly so, because don't forget, they were paid by the people that they gave the opinions to. They now have to come back and show their real credibility, and that's what they're doing. And in the resolution that I sent you, if you noticed, I think it's number 30, whereas, it says that the Government Accounting Standards Board, that's the GASB, that monitors the states and their accounting, is now saying, if you want to keep your AAA rating states and cities, you better put on your books now these unfunded liabilities. Why are they doing that? Because Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch had said over the past few years the same thing, and that's why they downgraded the United States. So you could see it coming. So GASB now has put out a what they call an announcement, a pronouncement, that books by the end of this June, 2014, the statements of the states must include it. Now, states have been on the accrual basis, but they've neatly decided that doesn't have to be put on. So that's now going to change. Now, GASB is an independent group, not appointed by anybody, funded by the independent, the taxpayers. It's not like this other group, this phony group they formed in 1990 after my bill called the FASAB. That's the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board. That's the group that's funded by the Treasury, the Comptroller General, and the OMB, and therefore you can't rely on their judgments because those people don't want to see the liabilities on the books. They're being controlled by their administrations. So that group needs to be put on a different basis for funding. So, the public doesn't understand this because they're not getting this level of detail when it comes to accountability.